Do you know what is this? This Murti? This is the only Murti I know of Raja Bharat. This is in Karnataka, in Chandragiri Hill, Savana, and this is the only Murti of Raja Bharat as far as I know. And most people of Bharat also don't know that this Murti exists. Agni Puran says that Rishabha gave birth to Bharata, who was eldest among 100 others, and made him the king. And same description. The land was called Bharatvarsha, not only because of name, but also because of all the ones born here are Bharatas. That means people living in Bharatvarsha are also Bharata. This is Carl Sagan is saying that Hindu cosmology matches quite perfectly with whatever knowledge we have about the universe, creation of universe in modern science.
Welcome all the viewers to the today's talk of Sangam Talk. And today we have the eminent speaker, Sri Kanchan Banerjee Mahasaya. He is a thinker, researcher, author, social leader, the founder and managing director of a research institute called Boston Center of Excellence for Health and Human Development. Kanchan Banerjee was born in a small village of West Bengal, India, where he had the first-hand experience of the communist movement, including the rise of the Left Front and Naxalism. Later, he moved to the USA to study computer science. And today, we talk about for the country's name change. What is the reality? Was Bharat ever a one nation, or was it the creation of the British? Many countries have a native name that is endonym and a name used by outsider that is exonym. What about India or Bharat? How did this name come into being? What do archaeology, history, itihash, and ancient texts say? Let us discuss with researcher and scholar Sri Kanchan Banerjee from Boston, USA, on this important topic.
Thank you, Sangam Talks, for having me. And thank you, all viewers, for listening to this important topic. So, today I will spend some time about the debate that is going on, then naming of this country, where the names come from, and then towards the end, we'll discuss briefly what we should be doing as citizens of India or individuals outside. What name should we be calling India by? So that is the discussion today. Name change of what? Change from what to what? So first of all, Bharat and India. These are the two names that are used by people. And there is another name. There's a third name. Hindustan also. So there are three names we have, and how these names came into being, we'll discuss that later. But first of all, the British colonists and then later on the Marxists propagate that there was no one India. There's no one Bharatvarsha. It was all, ununited small kingdoms, and there's no concept of a Indian nation. So the concept of nationhood that is modern, this modern nationhood is being imposed on ancient India, thousands and thousands of years of civilization. So first of all, the names. Two names are legally used. One is India, one is Bharat. So if you look at the Indian Constitution, the chapter Article 1, first line starts with India, that is Bharat. So that means both names are there. Those who were English speaking people, they decided, okay, we keep both. And if you look at the Hindi version of the Constitution, you will see Bharat, Arthat, India. So the opposite. So it starts with Bharat and India. So now the question is the current government trying to, remove one name and, change the name? First of all, there's no name change. Both the names are there. So that argument doesn't work. But there is a possibility that you can change the constitution and remove the name India, just keep it Bharat. That is a possibility, but I'm not sure if the current government is trying to do that. But having said that, this debate is actually good for people today, especially the young generation. It is allowing them to introspect and learn about their past. Okay, so why is it Bharat? Why is it India? Where the name came from? Why should we use this name? So that is important. The byproduct of this debate is that. So people come to know about their history more than they knew, more than what colonists and communists have taught us for last 75 years. So, first of all, it is uh, we already know what constitution says. The world has about 15 or 17 countries that has multiple names, and the name that is used by the people within the country is called the endonym. People outside, they call in a different, and they started to give you a different name, and then that is also used simultaneously for many countries, many years. So in case of um, India, Bharat, Hindustan, there are three names. So we'll come to that, how the about the origin of uh, these names. Before that, let's look at some of the countries who are using, they have endonym and exonym. So for example, Bhutan, inside their country, they don't use Bhutan maybe for international communication, but internally they use Drukubol. China, Chin, they use Junko or Zongo within their country. And we know that even within Indian languages, Egypt is called Misor, Misr. They also call Misr. Germany is their actual internal name, endonym is Deutschland. Greece, Hellenistic state or Hellas. Hungary, Japan has a different Indo name that is Nippon or Nihon. Poland, Polska, South Korea, Hankook, Switzerland, which is Swiss, Schwarz, multiple names within. So you can see that many different countries um, do have multiple names. Now, there's some specific special cases. In case of Netherlands, their earlier name was Holland, and there's some negativity associated with the name Holland, so they changed that to Netherlands. Then, if you look at Sri Lanka, um, during the colonial time, they called it Ceylon, Cuilone, but they changed the name to Sri Lanka. That is their original name. In case of Burma, which is Myanmar today, it was in Sanskrit, in old Sanskrit, it was Brahmadesh. It was called Brahmadesh for many, many hundreds of years. And that became Burma, like a shorter form, Burma. In Burmese language, they used to call it Rama, Bama. And then Myanmar, so his local colloquial language, got corrupted. So it was Myanmar, or finally it is Myanmar, which is really that it has a link to um, Brahmadesh, but in a convoluted way. So anyway, so they changed from Burma to Myanmar. So there are examples that countries' name change, and that is always, uh, you know, for throughout history, name changes happen, geography changes. Now the question comes that how did the name Bharat come from, and India come from? So India, very simply, around 400 to 450 BCE, Herodotus, the earliest reference we have, uh, Greek scholar Herodotus, first used the word India, Indica, and so forth. Um, it has a relationship. We all know, most people know that the seven big rivers in the northwest of a part of Indian subcontinent, and those rivers are they are used to be called Sapta-Sindhu. And of course, Sindhu River, which is in English, they used to call Indus. And from this Sapta-Sindhu, the Persians could not pronounce S, Sa. So they, in Bengali also, in Assamese and some other languages in India, Sa becomes Ha. So they called it Hapta-Hindu. So Hindu name came from Indian origin, which is Sindhu, Indus, and there are places where they call India Indus, and even Chinese traveler Human Sang also used Indu, INDU. So there is a link to our civilization, but uh, that is a little bit far. But the name Bharat is much more older. Um, Now let's come to this idea of there's no one India, no one nation called Bharatvarsha, that notion. In order to know why that was the case, you need to know a little bit of biblical background. So Genesis, which is one of the most important biblical literature, it says, um, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void and so forth. And then God, day one, it took 7 days for him to create the entire world. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. On the seventh day, he finished his job. He was taking divine rest, and everything is done. So this is biblical sort of idea of how old this our world is. And based on this, some believers, James Ussher, who was the Archbishop of Ireland, he calculated the date. The date is wrong here, actually. The world was created in 7 days on 23rd October in it. I have 4404. It is actually 4004. 4004 before Christ. This is his assumption that about 4,000 years before Christ was the whole world was created by God. And based on that, William Jones, many of you know, he was a very well-known one of the earliest Indologists. And he also had this strong belief in Christianity and the Bible. So he says either the first 11 chapters of Genesis are true, or the whole fabric of our national religion, which is Christianity, is false. And then said, I am obliged, of course, to believe the sanctity of the venerable books to which that sacred person refers as genuine, that sacred person, that God. So now William Jones, who also propagated the idea of Aryan invasion, he also propagates the idea that we believe in the biblical story of creation. And that continued for over 2 centuries, and it is still there actually in belief, Christian believers. This is still, some people still believe in that. And then came Max Muller. Max Muller, again, it is his early incarnation. He said, I look upon the creation given in the Genesis as simply historical. Then Max Muller said that there was a great flood around 3000 BCE, and Jesus was born in the first year of the Common Era. So on one hand, 4000 BC, the world was created. There was a great flood in 3000 BC. So no civilization can be there before 3000 BC. So how old is any civilization? So this framework is used to figure out the age of the civilization of our country, Bharat. And then it causes this triple constraint. The world is created in 4004 BC. There's a great flood, and then Jesus is born in first century. And these are all beliefs. You cannot do much, but you have to now look at the science, and what science and archaeology talks about. That is where I want to start. But even before that, let's see why this idea remained for so long. So when colonists were coming, they had to justify that they're coming to save these so-called heathens, the people of India, people of Africa, and other places. So they had to save people, and that's why they basically had to create these ideas to rule these countries. So now called people of non-believers, that means non-Christians, heathens. And many of you heard of Rudyard Kipling, a India-born British writer, author, poet. He wrote this infamous poem, Wake up, the white man's burden. Send forth the best ye breed. Go bind your sons to exile, to serve your captives' need, to wait in heavy harness on fluttered flock and wild your new caught sullen peoples, meaning this new caught is Indian people in India and other continents. You new caught sullen peoples, half devil, half child. Look at the mindset. So this is the white man's burden that they had to come, and then the belief continues now. This guy, Macaulay, many of you know Macaulay's child, Macaulay. He wrote his infamous memorandum of education, and he used what Raja Rammohn Roy set forth for good of India. Rammohn Roy, as you know, Renaissance man of India. Because of him, a lot of things change in the direction of our country happened during that Sandikhan. That is the period when Muslim rules ended. East India Company has come, and there is a time period where we had this great man, Raja Rammohn Roy, was born. He decided that, or he sided with education of people in India in English as opposed to Sanskrit. Not that he was opposed to Sanskrit. He decided that in order for India to catch up again with the rest of the world, Bharat has lost all the great institutes, learning institutes. Bharat has lost invention during the hundreds of years of invasion and foreign rule and then British came. So Raja Rammohn Roy decided and pushed for education through English, because we have to learn from the West again, which they learned from Bharat. And in order to do that, they have to communicate in English. That was the idea. But then 1831, that was the year I think Raja Rammohn Roy left the world. And there comes in 1836, I believe, Macaulay wrote this memorandum of education. He said, okay, great. We have an English education system, and we need to, use this language to propagate our own ideas, and that includes the biblical idea, Christian ideas. And he said, John Strachey said, going even a little further, the first and most important thing to learn about India is that there is not and never was an India, or even any country of it, possessing, according to our European ideas, any sort of unity, physical, political, social, or religious, no Indian nation, no people of India, of which we hear so much. So this idea was set forth around 1870s, I believe, and that is still continuing, you will see the Marxist historians and others will constantly talk about this idea. Now let's look at the age of the world, universe. First of all, this is the oldest known human type species fossil was found in Africa, in Ethiopia, and its age is 3.2 million years. So as you know, so the current species that we are called Homo sapiens. Before that, when the chimpanzee type of species, they started to walk on 2 feet, that was called Homo erectus. And just around that time, this Lucy, she's species is called Australopithecus or something. But again, Lucy could walk on 2 feet. So that's 3.2 million ago. And that directly clashes with biblical ideas. This is the Morocco man, so-called Morocco man. This is a fossil, the skull of this person. It is 200,000 to 315,000 years old, 2 lakh years old. And archaeology also has a bias, just like history. Colonist history has a bias against India. Marxist history has. Archaeologists do also have a little bit bias. And so if Morocco man is 200 to 300,000 years old, how about this, the Narmada man? Narmada, on the riverbank, they found in Madhya Pradesh this skull. This is 300,000 to 400,000 years old. And then, if that is not enough, you go to Chennai. There's a village called Attirampakkam. The tools that are used, stone tools, it is made only by modern human beings. And the age is minimum, they're saying, 385,000 years. Some people say that is 1.5 million years old. So now, from Aryan invasion theory, Dravid Arya clash, we are finding that we had civilization long before this period. The Saraswati Sindhu civilization, it's between 20,000 to 80,000 years ago. Now we are finding down south in Narmada Valley and down south, many evidence, many archaeological evidence, we find that the civilization is probably 100,000 years old, maybe 200,000 years old. So it is slowly coming out. So the job of modern researchers, historians, archaeologists should be to figure out in next 25 years, where India will celebrate 100 years of independence from Britain, should turn around and show that India had a long, long history. And now the question about, was there one India, one Bharat? First, I want to remind people that this mantra, Snan mantra, we chant is we for very long time. Nobody knows who wrote this mantra. Nobody knows when it was composed. So Ganga cha Jamune chaiva Godavari Saraswati Nanumede Sindhu Kaveri Jalasmin Sannidhim Kuru. O river Ganga, Jamuna, Godavari, Saraswati, Narmada, Sindhu, and Kaveri, please enrich um, the water I'm bathing with, your sacred presence. So that kind of tells us everywhere in Bharatvarsha, this mantra is chanted. No matter what language is your mother tongue is, this Sanskrit mantra is used almost everywhere throughout Bharat. So that tells us there was a inner unity within Bharatvarsha that has been neglected. Now we need to know a little bit about the sources of this name Bharatvarsha, Bharat. So there are multiple sources. One is the Vedas, Rigveda mainly, then the Puranas, and the Ramayana and Mahabharata. Then, so these names, Bharatvarsha name, how old is it? So in order to know that, people may argue, okay, these Puranas were written only 500 years ago, 400 years ago, or even Ramayana and Mahabharata was not that old. That is the argument colonists and Marxists do. But we have more evidence, a lot of evidence now, that these texts, the sacred texts that Bharat has, are quite old, quite old. Now, this is a hymn from Rigveda, and this is Vedas. In my opinion, or at least 10,000 years ago, maybe even 20,000 years ago, these hymns were composed. When it was written down, that's much, much later, but composition was done long back. So in this hymn, there is a praise, says that, praises to Indra have I sung, sustainer of this earth and heaven, this prayer of Vishwamitra to keep secure the sons of Bharatas. This Bharat word first time comes in this hymn, and this Bharat is not a name of a country. This is a clan, a Vans, a dynasty that is called Bharatvans. And many times in Rig Veda and other Vedas also, this Bharat clan comes. Then comes this sloka. This hymn says, these men, the sons of Bharata. Now, this is it. Now, sons of Bharata means someone named Bharat, his son. O Indra, regard not severance or close connection. They urge their own steed as it were another's, and take him swift, and so forth. So this is, now we see sons of Bharata. And then if we now go to Puranas, so the oldest Purana is perhaps the Vishnu Purana. It is composed probably between, according to modern Indologists, 1000 BCE to 400 CE. So we do not know. There's too many debates. I don't want to get into that, but it's old enough to say that long before the invaders came to Bharat, there existed these Puranas, and these Puranas talk about the name of this country. So first is the okay. So here's some important information. Normally, we think we know that there are Dash avatars of Bhagwan Vishnu, 10 avatars. But if you go to Bhagavad Puran, you will find 24 different avatars, and the last 10 are, of course, matching with the general knowledge of avatars. And also, there are not avatars of Vishnu only; there are avatars of other Dev Devis. I'm not getting into that now. So, if you look at this list, the 8th avatar in our sacred text is, his name is Rishabha. Rishabha Dev, or Rishabha, and that has a connection Now we'll find out with Bharatvarsha. And if you go to into Bhagavad Puran, it talks about Swayambhu Manu had a son called Priyabrata. His son is Agnidhara, and his son is Nabhi. Let's stop for a second. This Nabhi, uh, there was a time when Bharatvarsha was called Nabhi Varsh because he was a great king as well. So then Rishabha is the son of Nabhi, that avatar that we just talked about, eighth avatar. And Rishabh had 100 sons. The eldest of them was Bharat, and he became king after his father. After his father means Rishabh Dev. The land came to be called Bharatvarsha after him. So this Bhagavad Purana is quite old, at least 1,000 years old, maybe older. This very clearly describes the name Bharat Varsha. Varsha means this, Bharat named after Raja Bharat. And then we have other scriptures. I'll come to that. But let's talk about the Jain tradition. In Jain tradition also, you will find the founder, the Adi Tirthankar is Rishabh Dev. Happens to be eighth avatar according to Vishnu Purana or Bhagavad Puran, but he same. So the um, the people today is more or less convinced that Rishabh Dev in Bhagavad Puran and avatar within the Vishnu tradition is same as Adinath or Rishabh Dev. So next, do you know what is this Murti? This is the only Murti I know of Raja Bharat. This is in Karnataka, in Chandragiri Hill, Savana Belagola, and this is the only Murti of Raja Bharat as far as I know. And most people of Bharat also don't know that this Murti exists. So this is very interesting. Now let's go to other Puranas. Uh, so Agni Puran says that Rishabha gave birth to Bharata, who was eldest among 100 others, and made him the king. And same description. The land was called Bharatvarsha, not only because of name, but also because of all the ones born here are Bharatas. That means people living in Bharatvarsha are also Bharata. So today we call Bharatiya or Bharati, whatever the name is, but this Agni Puran is also very old. It actually gives identity to the people, to the land, to the people. And before I get into the Ramayana and Mahabharata, how the name has come from, as you know, India has how many? 18 major languages. 31 languages are spoken by over 1 million, meaning thus 10 lakh people. And there are 150 dialects. Indologists, linguists, they say to develop these languages, because Sanskrit was grandmother or even older, and then the languages evolved, whether it's Bengali, Gujarati, Marathi, and southern languages do have connections that I'm not getting into that details, but almost all Western, Northeast, North, and all languages has direct link. They are evolving from Sanskrit. It takes hundreds and hundreds of years for a language to become a normal language. So all the modern languages, Marathi, Gujarati, Bengali, Assamese, Oriya, they all evolved over hundreds and hundreds of years. So that is a proof that one Sanskrit mother has given so many new languages throughout the nation. There was a Pali language, there Prakrit language, and then Tamil, Telugu, and other languages. There are links. Tamil, many people say it started independent of this, but there are a lot of links to it because there's a conspiracy by Christian missionaries to remove Sanskrit words from Tamil language because Tamil is supposed to be non-Aryan. That was the hypothesis they had. So anyway, that's a long story. But if you look at the culture and food, every few kilometers, 20 kilometers, you go new food, new literature, new culture, and all the Hindu calendars throughout Bharat. You'll see they are very similar, if not exactly same. So now let's come to the Ramayana. First of all, the period of Ramayana has been determined. I'll come to that. But and Mahabharata also, not only through literary evidences, but also through um, archaeological evidence now. Uh, Interestingly, in Ramayana, I have not found the uses of the word Bharat. Yet it is called Aryabharta. And then, as you know, Arya doesn't mean, it doesn't denote a race. It was a theory they were propagating. Arya means a noble person, a great person, a great civilization, great people. So Aryaputra, Aryaputri, these are the words used in Ramayana and Mahabharata. But then colonists and Marxist historians say, oh no, Aryabharta was the northern part of Bharat that was invaded by the Aryans and so forth. And today we find that Aryabharta was a land area, but the entire Bharatvarsha was Aryabharta in that sense. So now some evidence. So as you can see, if in Ramayana we have description of um, Sri Ramchandra and Lakshman Sita Mas, they're all going for Banvas. And the places they traveled, it is very well described in Ramayana. The names, the rivers, the flowers, the plants, the animals, the rivers, mountains, most of them are still there. And that tells us this whole Bharatvarsha was one united um, landmass culturally and adhyatmic wise and otherwise. So, how do we know the age of Ramayana and Mahabharata? So, one thing they have used. Purana is in a way is a encyclopedia where just like today we have different encyclopedias, Wikipedia. So it keeps on changing. You keep on adding things, information in events, and that's where Puranas are called Itihasa. But unfortunately, or fortunately, both ways, dating is not specific. In most of the Puranas, okay, when this thing is happening, what time frame, it is very hard to find those sources. But luckily, in Ramayana and Mahabharata, we have every time there's an event happening, the composer, or whether it's Valmiki or Vedabhas, they are actually noting down what was the constellation of different stars and planets, and based on that, they have come up with a lot of data going backwards. Like, okay, when this constellation happened, when this star was there, these are the 5 stars they were together. When Bhishma Pitamaha was dying, there was a description. When the Mahabharata war starts, there's a description. And based on that, a bunch of scientists, they have come up with this dating that the Mahabharata period and Sri Krishna's time and Mahabharata war happened between 3066 BCE and 3138 BCE, before the Common Era. So these are the people who did use the software. They developed the astronomical software, planetarium software. Based on that, this NASA scientist S. Balakrishna, Dr. Narahari from University of Memphis, physicist, Dr. Iyengar from Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, and Dr. Kalan, they all came together, and this date is more or less fixed. So that's based on the text itself. Now, how about archaeology? You will see that in Dwarka, they found a submerged city, and in Sanauli, Uttar Pradesh, there is some archaeological evidence found related to Mahabharata, and some maybe even Ramayana. But some of the samples, like the left hand side, this one is the submerged city in Gujarat, and there are some. This is from UP, and more importantly, Dr. B.B. Lal, who was the head of Archaeological Survey of India for many years, and he recently passed away at the age of 100. He wrote this book through his research, Indraprastha, the earliest Delhi going back to Mahabharata times, and that tells that we have a history that is very old. So Indraprastha was that place. So let's see what Mahabharata says about the naming of this country. So this Bhishma Parma has three different slokas. I'm not going to read. I'm just going to show those who are interested. You can actually look it up, read, and I have a summary of what these slokas are actually talking about. So the summary of these slokas I just showed you. I will now will you owe your Bharat race? This race doesn't mean jati. This is about the clan, Bharat's dynasty, Bharat's clan or Vansh. Owe you Bharat's race of the tract of the land known by Bharata's name. This land is the beloved one of Indra, and you of Bharata's race, this land, O monarch that is called after Bharat, is also the beloved land of Manu, the son of Vivasat, of Prithu, of Vainya, of the high soul Ikshaku. By the way, Ikshaku is the name of the clan also where Sri Ramchandra belongs to. That is also Surya Vansha, of Yajati, and so many other names are there. And Sri Ramchandra was the 80th king of this Vansh, Surya Vansh, Ikshashu Vansh. So from Bharat, Raja Bharat, all the way to Ram, there is a connection. Then we also have how many? 50 rivers. There are 50 rivers mentioned in Mahabharata. And that's very interesting. And then during the great Mahabharata war, how many countries actually participated? Countries in this case is kingdoms or they used to call Janapadas. And again, I just wanted to mention the nation, the democracy, the concept that today we understand is just one idea. So Bharatvarsha is so old, it has experimented with so many different forms of governance, monarchy to other forms, democracy. So these are the Janapadas more or less were free kingdoms, and they were united with one culture, one heritage, one civilization, as you know how old it is. And sometimes there was a Chhatrapati king, ruling over the entire landmass, like Chandragupta Maurya, Raja Vikramaditya, Maharaja Samrat Vikramaditya. And there were times where there were local kings, there were alliances, sometimes fights. So that's how these kingdoms were living. So these are the all 17 different nations came into being, came into the Mahabharata, took part with either Pandavas or Kauravas. And if you notice that there are countries that are from all over, from north to east, south. There's no exception of any part of this country. So I'm not going to read through it, but you'll see there are so many. This is Chola, this is Dravida, Kamakha, and all these areas. Tamralipta, which is Bengal, south of Bengal. So these are mentioned in Mahabharata, which is quite old, 5,000 plus years old. And then back to the Puranas again. So Vishnu Purana, it says the country that lies north of the ocean and south of the snowy mountains is called Bharatam. There dwell the descendants of Bharat, Vishnu Purana. Another slok says, Rishabha was born to Marudevi, Bharata was born to Rishabha, Bharatvarsha arose from Bharata. And the other sloka also says the same thing. Country has been known as Bharatvarsha. So this is from Vishnu Purana, which is supposed to be the oldest of the Puranas. And now there you find the description of the country. I'm going to read this. It talks about different mountains, different dipas, there are different places. And how did they know? Did they have a airplane or what? How did they found out? So that means the civilization is so old that they were interconnected, and everybody, the rishis, the specialists, the teachers, they had this knowledge that this is our country, these are the land masses we have. They may not have gone there, but it was documented over a long period of time. That's a proof that Bharat was very old civilization and is. And most of the other civilizations, whether it's the Greeks, whether the Mesopotamians, whether Egypt, even they're all gone, came and gone. But Bharat still, the civilization of Bharat still lived, and we still carry the oldest traditions, heritage we have from the Vedas to all the way to the Puranas, and we continue. Even China may be a living civilization, but it has lost track in between. It went hayway somewhere and followed communism, and hopefully its culture its own initial culture will come back. Now, you all are familiar with this idea of Sati and Shivji. When Sati or Parvati went to her father's place for an occasion without being invited, and she was insulted, and she dies. And then when Shivji comes to know, Shivji does the Tandam Nritya, and the whole world is about to be destroyed. Then Bhagavan Vishnu, with using his Sudarshan Chakra, the different angas of Sati or Parvati was cut into pieces, and then all the angas, the parts of her body was falling all over the subcontinent. And these places are called um, Sati Peeth or Shakti Peeth. Now, if you look at the Shakti Peeth, so some sources say there are 108 Shakti Peeths, but generally it is said that there are 51 of them. And if you look at the map of Bharat, there is all these areas. So all these dots are actually a Shakti or Sati Peeth established. Nobody knows when they were established. Legend apart, nobody knows the Shakti Peeth. So how people of Bharat knows there are 51 and where they are? So that means they had a great geographical sense, geographical unity, cultural unity, adhatic unity. So definitely they were traveling to different uh, Tirthasthals like Dadash Jyotirlinga. There are 12 Jyotirlinga, and people try to visit as many of them possible. Then Char Dhams established by Adi Shankaracharya. Similarly, this Shakti Peeths, so there is one in Hinglaj, currently in Pakistan. One is Sharada Devi, Shakti Peeth, and it was in university as well. That's in occupied Pakistan, occupied Kashmir part. And there is one in Sri Lanka, one or two people say Tibet, Nepal, and rest of them are in Bharatvarsha and then Bangladesh, today's Bangladesh. And 14 happens to be in today's West Bengal, and 6 in today's Bangladesh. So this is again another great way to look at how united Bharatvarsha has been, not necessarily a single ruler ruling from Delhi or some other place. We had this unity for longest period of time, and we should take pride in that. And I wanted to just briefly mention that what the Hindus, what is the Hindu cosmology, how this universe, and I'll just quickly run through it, and you'll have some idea. But before that, you may have heard of Carl Sagan. He was a famous astrophysicist, and he came up with this idea of cosmos. He did a show and wrote about the age of the universe. This is what he had to say about India, Hindu cosmology. The Hindu religion is the only one of the world's greatest faiths dedicated to the idea that the cosmos itself undergoes an immense, indeed an infinite number of deaths and rebirths. It is the only religion in which the time scales correspond to those of modern scientific cosmology. Its cycles run from our ordinary day and night to a day and night of Brahma, the creator. 8.6 billion years long, longer than the age of the universe, age of Earth and the Sun, and about half the time since the time of the Big Bang. This is Carl Sagan is saying that Hindu cosmology matches quite perfectly with whatever knowledge we have about the universe, creation of universe in modern science is in a way matches. And when you look at the Puranas, the description of this time scale, it is unfathomable time scale they are talking about. So, for example, in Vishnu Purana, it says the day and night of Brahma together constitute one day and night, meaning 24 hours. Brahma day is 8.6 billion years. When that ends, there's a Manmantar happen. 360 Brahma days constitute Brahma year, a Kalpa, and 360 years represent the lifetime of Brahma, and that's Mahakalpa. Now you can multiply 8.64 to 360 times 360. This is the time frame we are talking about. And just to give some idea, one Manmantar is 71 Yuga chakras, one Mahayuga is 24,000 years, and then Satyayug 4,800. So this is based on the new calculations and alternative calculations that how long these yugas are. The uh, majority have a different idea, 130,000, 2,000 years or so forth, large numbers. But this is a modern interpretation of the yugas. I don't want to get into details. I have to skip this. Um, when we have any occasion, spiritual occasion, any ceremony, whether it's wedding or a puja, in the beginning, um, there is a Sankalp mantra. Most of you may have noticed it's all over Bharat. And this mantra is used to actually document the space and time and the occasion. So how the time is calculated? So the mantra says, if you listen to the mantra, there's a sankalpam at the very beginning of any such sacred events. So it will say Ditya Parardhe. That means in the second half of Brahma's life. Sheta Baraha Kalpe, in the Kalpa of Sheta Baraha. Vaivashvata Manmantare, that means that this is the period of the Manu. Manu is not a one man or one person, it's a position. So Manu, current Manu is Vaivashvata, Ashtabhimshati Tame, and so forth. It says which you, and then comes to space. Jammu Deepe. Jammu Deep is the whole landmass from China all the way down. It used to be called Jammu Deep. Bharatvarsha, Bharat Khande, in the land of Bharat. And then there are other description. It goes all the way to the village or town. And then it talks about the year, the month, the tithi, the pakshan tithi. You can imagine what a scientific way of documenting a Shankal mantra, which is kind of oath taking. And now that tells us that we are actually talking about billions of years every day that this universe was created, billions of years. We're talking about Brahma, we are talking about Parartha. If you look at the number of zeros next to one, modern science, modern mathematicians only came to know that kind of number, large numbers, only recently. But it was known to our people. And then that is about Bharatvarsha and Bharat's unity. And this is the mantra I don't want to repeat. You can read it through when you have time. But now I come to the naming of Hindu in thus India for next few minutes. Then I'll finish this. So basically, as I mentioned earlier, these are the rivers of Northwest, and the seven rivers, including Saraswati, Satluj, Beas, Ravi, Chenab, Jhelum, and Sindhu, of course. It's called Sapta-Sindhu, or it became Hapta-Hindu, and then Hindu. So anybody lived on that side of the Sindhu Nad, Persians call them Hindu, and the Greeks call us Indus or Indus. So it became Hindu, and India has roots to this idea of Sapta-Sindhu or Hapta-Hindu. But at the end of the day, these are all given names from outside. But the nation, the country was called Bharata, Bharatvarsha, and the people were called Bharata. So this is endoname and exoname again. And now, first use of this so far found, it may change tomorrow. First use the word Hindu. You see King Darius in Persia. He was ruling around 522 to 486 BCE. That time, there's an inscription. There's a lot of inscriptions. One of the inscriptions talks about this, uses this term similar to Hindu and how it looks. This is the actual inscription, and this is how the inscription is written. It has two ways of looking at it: Hindu and Hindus. And again, the Indus, Hindu, Hind is there, and this is as old as 500 BC, almost 500 BC. Then comes to the naming of the third name, that is Hindustan. So the Persians were calling us Hindus. So the invaders who come from Turkey and other places, starting from 800 CE and so forth, They also call these people Hindus. Different names were there. And Avesta, which is Zoroastrian text, it calls the land Hind. Arabs then started calling it Al Hind, the Hind. Europeans, Hindus, and Chinese people, Hindu. These are the few names we find from ancient times. And then Chachnama, there's a book was written in Arabic, and there we find this naming an Arabic historical document that is again translated in Persian from 8th century. It uses the word Hinduvan and Hindavi to denote our people. And then this is Abul Fazl, the time of Akbar in Aini Akbari. This is first time actually it is very clearly stated Hindustan name is created. The sea borders Hindustan on the east, west, and south. In the north, the great mountain ranges separate India from Turan, Iran, and China. Intelligent men of the past have considered Kabul and Kandahar as the twin gates of Hindustan. By guarding these two, Hindustan obtains peace from the alien raiders. So now this Hindustan name is used in Hindi-speaking areas. People use it interchangeably. Bharat, India, as you know, Ajad, the Jai Hind, the call that was given by Netaji is related to Hindustan. So that's about the naming of this country. Three different names, how it came into being. And before I go, I just wanted to mention one more thing: the term Hinduism. So the missionaries, the colonists, they were coming to Bharat, and they had an idea of religion and God, and you won't find any equivalent word in Indian languages, Sanskrit or any languages. The terminologies that we use are Dharma and Ishvara, Brahman, Bhagavan, and all this. So what they did, the Christian theologians, they imposed their idea, limited idea, on a huge, broad idea of Dharma and Ishvara into religion and God. So that's where the problem. And they could not understand how diverse our traditions are from place to place and practices. And so, they were confused. So they said, all right, we have to call something. They call it Hinduism. And many people think that it was Raja Ram Mohan Roy who coined the term Hinduism, which is not true. Long before that, at least 30 years ago, one Charles Grant, a British guy, he has written a letter. It has the term Hinduism. And then, of course, Ram Mohan Roy and even Sri Aurobindo and Vivekananda, they all had to use, because of the time, because to communicate, you have to come closer to what they understand. So they used, but the missionaries had a different game plan. Jain tradition, Buddha tradition, Sikh tradition, they were all part of the greater Sanatan Dharma, Hindu Dharma, and they divided them again. Until 1800s, late 1800s, there was no such thing as Jainism. It's Jain Dharma, Sikh Dharma, Sikh Panth, and same with Buddha. So they called them Buddhism, Sikhism, Jainism, Hinduism, and actually Islam was called Mohammedanism at some point. Now more people use it, and Judaism, except of Christianity, all were isms or some, hypothetical ideas. So now question is, which is I'm ending it right now. So which identity of this country is important? India or Bharat? Which name should we be as Bharatiyas, Bharatas? What name should we use? I think you will have the answer. The moment you say my country is Bharat, Bharatvarsha, you immediately connect with the rishis of the Vedas, all the great people that lived for thousands and thousands of years. You feel that Gaurav inside you, that I belong to this nation, this country, this landmass, which has a tradition, a heritage, a civilization of thousands. So when you use the term India, does it evoke that feeling in you? In my opinion, probably not. So if I had to choose, I always try to use the word Bharat when I'm talking to people who are not who won't understand. But now I think what Prime Minister Modi ji and the current government is trying to do is put the name Bharata more than India, so that people know. So the moment they'll say, okay, why Bharat? Then they will try to understand our history. They will have a sense of history that, okay, yeah, this is a great civilization. That doesn't mean India is a bad name. India was given by some outside, like the Greeks started. So now that is the decision of people, what name they should be using. And it's people's choice. People may use Hindustan. That's fine. So I'll leave it there. Namaskar.